all the areas of gendered life and inequality is beyond the scope of this piece. Therefore, we will discuss the arguments that have been put forward that argue a case for continuing existence of international gender power relations in a number of specific areas such as politics, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal. These arguments suggest that gendered inequality is visible in both private and public spheres, especially the economics. The validity of the arguments that gender inequalities are still entrenched and persist over the time, place, and culture will initially be compared to alternative claims that gender power relations and thus inequalities are gradually eroded. States that politician gender affects the policy content, and that is one reason that women and men should have equal representation. Ernest claims that women need to participate equally in politics as men in order to make the conflicts between the visible, increase women's interest in political system, and make the political system less conflict. He also claims that there is a variety of arguments about women's political representation and participation that are considered as relevant categories about participation rights in politics. There are three important basic arguments. First is justice and democracy argument. Second is recurse argument. And the third is conflict of interest. We have more than our share of women and who are active in civil society and have an education experience to be in public office. But the reality of actually running a political campaign, mostly the challenges of access to political finance, hinders their participation. Interests of women are underrepresented, repressed, or hidden. It is important to have women in politics because they need to observe women's political interests and not risk that their interests will be less valued next to men's interests.
Gender inequalities is a worldwide phenomenon that costing the global economy trillions of dollars. In many developing countries, inequality in access, a quality education between girls and boys, adversely impact girls' ability to build human and social capital, lowering their jobs opportunities and wage on labor markets. And gender inequality is one of the barriers of economic growth that affects countries and many people. Changing the way gender threatened in economics such as workplace will have direct positive impact on global economy. Closing the gender inequality would raise the growth of economic of the countries, and for wealthier countries that embrace any kind of gender on the workplace for the better global economic.
Through the lens of the social domain, gender inequality has its inevitable implications in multiple aspects. To assess all these areas is beyond the scope of this video. Therefore, I will mainly analyze its possible application in trends such as expectations focusing on career attitudes and through the spectrum of education. Foremost in career attitudes, there is a tendency in which women may limit their preference in pursuing work, as they are channeled into specific sectors that put them on a lower level of the occupational status ladder. They may restrict themselves to such standards. On the flip side, in education levels, the possible repercussions is also found at the expense of women, because women are commonly socialized to assume home responsibilities with the expectation that they will be economically dependent on men. They are at risk of being denied an access to education. Overall, these identified threats render a profound view of how the global issue of gender inequality impacts society and how opportunities for marginalized roles are exploited.
Gender inequality is a major challenge on local, national, and global levels. Not only does it affect the lives of individuals, men and women, but the inequality between genders also stunts economic growth and hinders development. As a tech-savvy person living in this modern world, technology serves as a learning ground for persons who experience gender inequality and amplifies voices for those who are being neglected by the society. It serves as a bridge and connects people to understand that gender inequality influences some parts of technology, like creating a platform for them to urge a society that the world is not just a bastion of men and women, but rather it is a place for all gender. In today's advancement, technology can address the partiality of all gender in the world.
From national government to local community groups, women are vastly underrepresented in decision making. For instance, women make up less than 25% of all national parliamentarians around the world. This underrepresentation also extends to national environmental decision making, where women hold only 12% on top on ministerial positions in environment-related sectors worldwide. In many communities, cultural norms and time-intensive household care duties often impede women's abilities to participate in community consultation and decision-making processes of sustainable management. This means that when it comes to natural resources and ecosystem management, women's needs and prior knowledge are often ignored and overlooked, impacting their empowerment and agency in undermining the effectiveness of sustainable management solutions. While gender gaps are a risk of effective sustainable ecosystem management, this gap can also be addressed in a sustainable management approaches through promotion of gender equality and women's empowerment. It is important to note that gender equality and the resulting gaps and barriers are different from every context. Therefore, any project programs and strategies for sustainable ecosystem management need to be grounded in a gender and social context analysis that consider gaps, as well as opportunities to address them, specific to the context.
Gender inequality is discrimination on the basis of sex or gender, causing one sex or gender to be routinely privileged or prioritized over another. Gender equality is a fundamental human right, and that right is violated by gender-based discrimination. Gender disparities starts in childhood and are right now limiting the lifelong potential of children around the world, disproportionately affecting girls. Republic Act 9710 is a comprehensive women's human rights law that seeks to eliminate discrimination through the recognition, protection, fulfillment, and promotion of the rights of Filipino women, especially those belonging in the marginalized sectors of the society. It conveys a framework of rights for women based directly on international law. Pursuant to this law's Executive Order 273 that states the approval and adoption of Philippine Plan for Gender Responsive Development 1995 to 2025.